So, the season 4 of The Boys starts with Victoria Newman walking outside to address the crowd. Kimiko walks in the background pretending to be a caterer, as the boys are in the back plotting something. Meanwhile, Homelander goes to the bathroom and unexpectedly finds a grey hair, which visibly bugs him. The boys see that Homelander is in the building and they're confused. Victoria seems just as surprised, not keen to be associated with a supe on trial for murder. Ryan is there with his dad and leaves with Victoria's daughter Zoe. Butcher sees him and offers to bring him back to Grace, but Homelander overhears and intercepts. The boys infiltrate Victoria Newman's room, but her daughter encounters them and reveals that she is a supe. She attacks and Kimiko loses her arm. They jump out of the window and Starlight intercepts to save Frenchie, but she doesn't catch Kimiko, who drops to the concrete but instantly regenerates her lost body parts. Just then, Victoria walks outside and finds Huey in the van. Huey threatens to expose her, but Victoria tells him a truce is the only option. Huey throws acid over her, and Butcher attempts to shoot her in the head, however they learn that she is invulnerable. Ashley meets with Homelander, the Deep, A-Train, and the new Black Noir to discuss the recruitment of a new member of the Seven. Among the candidates is Sister Sage, whose power is that she is the most intelligent person on the planet. A-Train recommends against recruiting her, having worked with her in Teenage Kicks, from which she was kicked out. Homelander gets annoyed with everyone else pandering to him and demands the Deep perform oral on A-Train. When the two actually prepare to do it, this just makes Homelander angrier as he is tired of everyone fawning over him and agreeing with anything he says. Butcher meets with Victoria Newman at Vought Video and he tells her he knows what's happening at Godolkin. He suggests she needs him and vice versa, and she demands files that Huey has as a show of good faith. Huey's dad has a stroke and he rushes to the hospital. Meanwhile, Annie visits the Starlight house and denies their request to dress up like Starlight to raise donations because she wants to support as Annie January. Frenchie has a seemingly romantic moment touching fingers with Colin, a guy who works at Starlight House, and Kimiko sees them from afar. Later, Colin texts Frenchie and Kimiko asks about him. She tells Frenchie she loves him, but that they are not happening, so if Colin makes him happy, he can go for it. Homelander pays a visit to Sister Sage and asks her to prove her extreme intelligence. She tells him he's aging because she can tell that his hair is being colored more often and his prostate is enlarged. He is partly impressed by her assumptions and also annoyed, but she knows he won't hurt her because he needs her for something. He asks her for advice, claiming that no matter how much he does, he's still not happy and life feels meaningless. He invites her to join the Seven, and she tells him no way as he'd only hate having to listen to her as a young black woman, but he convinces her that he'll be open to her advice. Butcher gives Huey a hug when he hears about what happened to his dad, and also takes the chance to steal the flash drive containing the films Victoria Newman wants. Soon, the boys run another operation, tracking Todd, who goes to meet with Sister Sage, who brings him to meet Homelander. The other members of the Seven are surprised to see Sage there. Homelander thanks Todd and the other fans for their dedication and sacrifice. Homelander then hands baseball bats to A-Train, the Deep, and Black Noir to kill them. A-Train hesitates, but the others do it. Sage tells them to stay there and wait for further instructions. Homelander walks outside and MM spots him, confused by his presence since he's meant to be at his trial. Later, Homelander arrives at the courthouse for the verdict from his trial. Starlighters gather outside the courthouse, including Sage in disguise as one of them. The verdict reads, "Not guilty." Sage throws a cup of coffee on one of Homelander's supporters, which incites a riot. The boys try to intervene, and Frenchie grabs Colin to save him, and they share a passionate kiss. Homelander and Annie show up to discourage the violence, although Homelander's words are empty. Just then, a text gets sent to A-Train with instructions to run the bodies to the scene of the riot. There, MM sees that Todd is one of the dead people. The police move in and clear the crowds. As a result, it is believed that the Starlighters killed the three, and public opinion on them begins to turn. At the end of the day, Homelander celebrates with Ryan at home, and Ryan tells him he doesn't want Butcher to die. At home, the Deep opens up to Ambrosius, the octopus, about how messed up the murders were that day. Meanwhile, Huey sits at the hospital with his dad, Just then, Huey's mom shows up at the hospital, surprising Huey. Butcher talks to Becca Butcher in his head, trying to defend his actions to help Ryan. Becca insists he doesn't become like Homelander. "Be the man that I married," she says to him. As a result, he decides not to betray Huey and instead sends an obscene photo to Newman. Later, we see a movie set for the film Training A-Train, featuring A-Train before he became his famous superhero self. The director, Adam Burke, shoots an inner-city housing project where Reggie Franklin works as a runner for drug dealers. His high school coach, played by Will Ferrell, tries to convince Reggie to return to sports. After the scene ends, Burke tries to talk to A-Train about his lackluster performance. A-Train is upset by the inaccurate and offensive portrayal of his life, as his real coach was his brother, who worked as a waiter, not a drug dealer. He storms off and goes back to his trailer, where Black Noir intercepts him to open up about his guilt over the recent murders on Homelander's orders. A-Train dismisses him, calling him a brain-dead maniac, and telling him to be quiet because that's what Black Noir is supposed to be like. Huey has an emotional conversation with his mom, finding out that she and his dad had been talking for over a year, and that his dad left a power of attorney instead of Huey. Shocked, Huey storms out, intent on seeking legal guidance to challenge her for power of attorney. Meanwhile, Frenchie wakes up with Colin after an intimate night together, and Colin catches Frenchie trying to sneak away. Kimiko sits in a therapy session, still unable to speak, but she storms out after her doctor tries to ask about her family history. Later, at the boys' head office, Butcher reveals his terminal diagnosis, which surprises the group. MM, who is now the leader of the group, demands that Butcher leave the group, seeing him as a liability. Vaught's PR team pitches Ryan's debut as Homeboy, but Sister Sage criticizes the idea, arguing Ryan needs to build an independent image, not just be Homelander's son. Homelander reluctantly agrees but is visibly troubled by the idea, not wanting the spotlight to be taken away from him. The boys discuss the suspicious murders of 3 Homelander fans, and then focuses on Sister Sage and why she was even there in the first place. They hack her phone and discover she will be at a Vought event later on, and they plan to crash it. Starlight and Huey stay behind to confront A-Train and stay close to Huey's dad in the hospital. At the Vought event, the boys unexpectedly run into Butcher, who hacked MM's password to find out where they were. Inside, they see several conspiracy theorist booths, with propaganda against Starlight and claims that Stormfront is still alive. Sage attends a panel hosted by Firecracker, who admits she sells the idea of purple to the disenfranchised. Butcher and MM argue about their mission, with MM beating Butcher and telling him to leave. Kimiko sees a child trafficking booth using an image of herself, which enrages her. She chugs several beers and gets drunk. She proceeds to vandalize the booth and make a scene, but Frenchie pulls her away in time. Huey and Annie stake out A-Train, witnessing a confrontation with his brother Nathan, who exposes A-Train's fake hero stories. A-Train later provides evidence to clear Starlight's followers of the Homelander trial murders as a way to start to undo his wrongs. Ryan's staged solo save goes wrong when he accidentally kills his stunt coach Coy, but Homelander forces Ryan to smile despite his trauma. Meanwhile, the boys fall into a trap set by Sage and Firecracker. Sage instructs Firecracker and Splinter to kill the boys, after realizing they were tailing her. The boys manage to kill Splinter and his clones as well as defeat Firecracker, who runs away. In Homelander's apartment, Ryan is devastated by killing Coy. Homelander tries to console him, but can't seem to understand why he's crying over the death of a fragile human. Then, at a Starlighter rally, Annie, inspired by A-Train's bravery, embraces her role as a political symbol and starts to speak up. Meanwhile, Frenchie relapses and takes drugs again. He confesses to Cherie that he's been seeing Colin, and she reminds him that they killed his family many years ago and Frenchie needs to back away. At their office, Butcher seeks MM's help to help save Ryan, but MM rejects the offer and Butcher leaves. Later, a youth choir sings at a rally led by Homelander, but Homelander is distracted and annoyed by the Starlighter crowd's presence, but he tries to maintain his cool. He introduces the 7, including the Deep, A-Train, and Black Noir, in addition to 2 new members to the 7 Firecracker and Sister Sage. Despite her dissatisfaction with her costume, Sister Sage plays along on stage. At the rally, Homelander brings Ryan on stage. However, Ryan isn't accustomed to this public attention, and Homelander leans in to threaten Ryan to smile for the crowd, which he does obligingly. Soon, Butcher meets with CIA member Joe Kessler, who gives him a sedative for Ryan. Butcher plans to take Ryan to a safe house to steer him away from Homelander's influence. During the Seven's first press conference with the new members, Homelander doesn't like Firecracker's conspiracy theory speeches, but Sage assures him that she is their best hope at taking down Starlight. Tensions rise as Sage criticizes Homelander for putting her in the spotlight, despite their initial agreement that she would remain in the background. Meanwhile, Huey and Annie consult a lawyer to regain power of attorney over Huey's father from his mother, Daphne. However, they are told that legally there isn't much Huey can do. Frenchie visits the Starlighter organization headquarters, where he runs into Colin. However, they get interrupted by a conspiracy theorist and Firecracker fan who points a gun at a Starlighter employee, intent on freeing the trafficked kids from the non-existent basement. Frenchie intervenes and gets hurt, but Colin tends to his injuries. President-elect Robert Singer holds a meeting where he intentionally did not invite VP-elect Victoria Newman. But Newman crashes the meeting and agrees to Singer's policy of banning supes from government and military service, calling them entertainers. At the boys' office, Kimiko proposes tracking down and killing a local cell of the Shining Light trafficking group. Frenchie opposes this, but eventually he gives in and agrees to support her and go with her. Annie tries to train Huey in fighting, but he struggles. MM tells the boys his plan to flip A-Train, but Huey and Annie think it's a bad idea. At Homelander's apartment, Ryan plays a video game. He receives an online challenge from a stranger who later reveals himself to be Butcher. Butcher asks him to stop by his house so they can talk, but Ryan warns Butcher he was told to stay away. Homelander watches rally footage of Starlight while Firecracker tries to speak to him. He is so tuned into the television that he doesn't hear anything Firecracker says. Eventually, he asks her to repeat herself, and Firecracker tells Homelander that if he ever needs anything, she is there for him. Black Noir expresses some personal concerns to Ashley, seeking more direction in his role. However, everyone tells Black Noir to be quiet. Homelander dismisses Ashley from the Seven meeting, explaining that Sister Sage has taken over her duties as Vaught's CEO. Ashley asks if she is being fired, but gets assured that she will still be a figurehead for Vought. But Ashley considers quitting, when Sage announces that a leak allowed Starlight to clear her followers' names. The Deep is demoted since he is in charge of the crime lab, while A-Train receives a text from his brother, Nathan, about wanting to meet. The Deep returns home to a confrontation with Ambrosius about their relationship. She wants them to run away so they can really be together, but the Deep disagrees. Meanwhile, Butcher prepares spiked cookies, using Becca's old recipe when Ryan arrives, but Ryan isn't interested in eating a cookie. They play a game of foosball, during which Butcher opens up about losing his brother Lenny. Ryan confesses to killing Coy and feeling horrible about it. Butcher tries to comfort Ryan, and he throws away the spiked cookies, making up that he put too much sugar in them. Sister Sage, Homelander, and Ashley interrogate Vought employee Annika about her connection to Starlight. Sage's calm questioning leads to Annika's confession that she has spoken to Starlight recently, but Homelander immediately kills her with his laser vision. Sage is annoyed at this, while Ashley is traumatized. Annie breaks into Firecracker's apartment to ask her why she has it out for her. She finds out that Firecracker, formerly known as Sparkler, holds a grudge against Annie for bullying her during a pageant. Annie tries to apologize, but Firecracker remains hostile. Later, a practice session for an ice skating show based on the Seven goes on in an arena where Victoria Newman is meant to show up. Huey and MM, disguised as janitors, watch from afar. Newman unexpectedly arrives early, so Huey rushes to plant a bug in the vents above. He hears Homelander, Sister Sage, and Newman discussing their plans. Homelander tells Newman she should reveal herself as a supe and should oppose Singer's new bill that bans supes from the government. Huey accidentally sweats on Homelander, leading Homelander to laser the vent above and go on a wild chase to catch and kill Huey. He kills several bystanders in the process, but Huey gets away thanks to A-Train. Later, Huey visits his mom in the hospital and asks why she left him when he was so young. She explains her struggle with postpartum depression, which led to her needing to leave because it felt like life or death. Huey seems to start to understand his mom more and seems closer to forgiving her. Meanwhile, Joe confronts Butcher about not using the sedative on Ryan, but Butcher explains that he wants to take his time convincing Ryan. Joe insists they either train him or kill him to prevent him from becoming Homelander, implying that Butcher needs to get to him quicker. The Deep finds Sister Sage on the couch, eating an Outback blooming onion and watching reality shows. She seduces him, telling him he's hot, and they start to make out. Back at home, Homelander, waiting for Ryan, asks him where he went. Ryan lied, but Homelander called him out, claiming he could smell Butcher on him. They argue, and Homelander's pent-up rage results in him smashing a window, scaring away Ryan. Homelander suffers a panic attack, which quickly turns into a mental breakdown until his fractured personalities speak to him through the shattered window. His personalities conclude he must transcend his humanity and finally cast out his desperate need for love. He receives a clear order from himself to return to the lab that created him. Later, in the lab, scientists are going about their usual work when a security guard alerts the assistant director, Marty, that the security cameras upstairs have gone blank. When the security guard calls Vought to inform them that there has been a breach, he discovers that the line is dead. As they watch the elevator slowly come down to their level, they prepare themselves for the worst. When the door opens, Homelander is revealed to be standing there with a box with a chocolate ice cream cake inside. Homelander appears to be in good spirits, although the lab staff are noticeably nervous because Homelander can be unpredictable. Homelander reminds one of the people on the staff, Frank, that he remembers as a child when Frank put him in the incinerator while playing a game outside. Homelander asks Frank to step into the incinerator while Homelander throws a paper ball into the trash. He burns and dies while Homelander laughs. Later, Homelander asks Marty to touch himself in front of his staff after recounting a memory of when Marty laughed at Homelander doing the same thing. He lasers and kills Marty. Finally, Barbara Findlay comes to the lab and tells Homelander that he always had the ability to escape the lab, but never did because Vought brought in the best psychologists to ensure that he constantly sought their approval. Homelander recognizes the truth in this. He locks Barbara in what he called the bad room and killed the entire lab staff and left Barbara in the room with their bloody bodies. Meanwhile, Huey visited his father in the hospital where he was told that his feeding tubes were to be taken out and that he would die in a matter of days. Devastated, he and Kimiko go to meet A-Train. Huey tells him they will finally be even if A-Train can steal him a vial of Compound V serum. Reluctantly, A-Train agrees and manages to secure it for him by stealing it from Homelander's apartment. After their meeting with A-Train, Kimiko and Huey get shot at by some members of the Shining Light. They manage to fight their way out, but Huey gets injured in the process. Sister Sage continues her plan to take down Starlight by getting Firecracker a 6-hour TV special where she reveals Starlight's secrets. Firecracker sets up her stage directly across from Starlight House, which enrages Annie, who can't help but listen to some of the claims Firecracker makes. Annie gets enraged when Firecracker reveals that Annie had an abortion, which was a very tough decision and time for Annie, so she loses it and attacks Firecracker, nearly beating her to death. Sage watches the TV from afar, pleased at how rattled Starlight is. While Firecracker was on stage, Butcher and Frenchie break into Firecracker's trailer, hoping to find some of her secrets. However, they get interrupted by Ezekiel, who attacks Frenchie and throws him through a window. He wraps his arms around Butcher, nearly choking him to death. However, Butcher somehow manages to cause Ezekiel to explode. Even he is surprised by these unknown powers. Later, Colin helps tend to Frenchie's wounds when Frenchie finally breaks down and confesses that he was the one who murdered Colin's family. Appalled, Colin tells Frenchie to stay away from him or he'll kill him. Meanwhile, Sister Sage asks the Deep to give her a frontal lobotomy, claiming that she finds pleasure in feeling less intelligent, even if it's only briefly. He initially hesitates, but agrees after she offers to sleep with him. After some time, Huey brings the Compound V to his father's bedside, but ultimately decides against giving it to him after some warning words from Butcher. However, his father suddenly comes back to life and breathes again. Compound V is seen entering his bloodstream, but Huey seems confused about how it got there. His mother, however, looks on calmly, and it is assumed that she took it from his jacket to give to him. Later, at Vought's fan festival, V52, the Deep and Cameron Coleman are presenting Phase 7 of the VCU, Vought Cinematic Universe. Meanwhile, Huey is at the hospital with his parents, Hugh and Daphne. Hugh appears to be in good health, and is unsure if he actually had a stroke as bad as the doctor said, since he claims then he shouldn't be alive. Huey then goes to talk with his mother in private, asking her if she injected Compound V into Hugh's bloodstream. She says the Compound V fell out of Huey's coat and she assumed that's what he wanted to do. She says Huey grew up without one parent and she couldn't bear the thought of him losing another one. Meanwhile, Firecracker is on Vought News Network, bad-mouthing Starlight. Starlight is shown watching in clear distress. She goes to take a look around the now vandalized Starlight house, and horrific messages are seen all over the place. Meanwhile, the boys regroup at their headquarters and they make a new plan. Butcher announces that a supe virus was being created at Godolkin University that could kill supes. However, Victoria Newman managed to get it, so they need to track her down. To do that, Butcher and MM go to jail, where Stan Edgar, Victoria's adoptive father, is locked up. They offer him release from jail in exchange for helping them secure the supervirus. He agrees and takes them to his old farm, sure that if Victoria were to hide anything, it might be there. He's right as they discover a lab and a bunch of souped up animals. Blood is everywhere, and no one is to be found. However, Victoria promptly shows up and finds them there. The group walks around the farm, looking for clues, and for Samir, Zoe's father, and they encounter super strength and violent chickens, as well as flying murderous sheep. They try to escape by hiding in a barn, where they find Samir, who explains that a leak infected the water supply, which made all of the animals go violent. He also explained that the virus he was developing is gone except for one dose. The team, apart from Butcher, insist that they use this final dose to infect a dead person and throw it out to the animals to feed on. This way, they will get infected with the virus and die. The plan works and the animals start falling from the sky. However, amidst the chaos, Samir goes missing and all that is found is part of his leg. MM and Butcher send Stan Edgar back to jail because he didn't help them get the virus. However, Victoria kills the driver, bringing him back, and helps him in escaping. It's later revealed that Butcher cut off Samir's leg and held him captive, with the intention of handing him over to Joe Kessler so that Samir could create more of the virus to take down Homelander. Back at the hospital, Huey's father starts to forget things and discovers he is able to teleport and walk through walls. However, he kills several innocent people in the process. Hugh even turns on Daphne, forgetting their recent amicable friendship and focusing more on her leaving him. He threatens to kill her, but Huey intervenes and eventually realizes that he needs to kill his father to save him and others. Hugh seems to agree and lets Huey inject him with something so that he passes away quickly and peacefully. Homelander asks Ryan what he wants, and Ryan says to help people. Homelander suggests they help with a young PA Bonnie who keeps getting hit on by Adam Burke. Ryan suggests Adam apologize, and when he doesn't believe it's sincere, he suggests she slap him over and over again, while Ryan and Homelander watch on, laughing. Later that evening, at Vought Tower, the leak is revealed to be Cameron Coleman. Ashley framed him after he ruthlessly dumped her earlier on, and he gets killed by the Seven. Homelander announces to the Seven that they won't just be celebrities anymore, but rather wraithful gods. He even brings in Sam and Kate from Godolkin University, who promise to support Homelander when they are called to. Torn up by guilt, Frenchie goes to the police station to confess to several murders. Butcher wakes up Samir, demanding he create a stronger dose of the supe virus to take down Homelander. Samir hesitates, worried that they might use this same dose against Victoria. In a final farewell to his dad, Huey scatters his father's ashes during a Made in Manhattan walking tour with Daphne, Starlight, MM, and Kimiko. He tells Daphne about Frenchie turning himself in for his past murders working for a Russian mob boss, but their conversation is interrupted by a protester shouting, "Abortion is murder," at Starlight. Huey tells the guy off and they continue their walk to avoid causing a scene after Starlight asks Huey to back down. Later, Kimiko visits Frenchie in prison, but he refuses to see her or anyone. Firecracker replaces Cameron Coleman as the anchor of Vought News Network. Her first story focuses on Jewish space lasers brainwashing people. watches and turns the TV off. He tries to meditate, but is interrupted by a panicked call from A-Train, who is terrified he will be found out as the leak. After A-Train gives the boys some intel about a meet and greet at Tech Knight's house, devises a plan to infiltrate the party, where they might uncover what Tech Knight has been discussing with Sister Sage. With Butcher missing, they turn to Webweaver, a supe, for help. Webweaver, a drug addict, agrees to help in exchange for a fix. reluctantly helps him, and they prepare for the mission by taking his costume. Homelander, Ryan, and the Seven attend Tech Knight's party. Tech Knight suggests a team up with Homelander, but is immediately dismissed because Homelander would never be an equal to Knight. Ashley, who goes way back with Tech Knight, shows up at the party to the surprise of Sister Sage. Huey, disguised in Webweaver's suit, sneaks into the mansion to plant bugs and gather information. Homelander mentions to Victoria a secret meeting to convince the rich elite to commit high treason. Victoria, worried but strategic, supports Homelander's plan despite its risks. Sister Sage advises her to maintain their alliance for the upcoming challenges, claiming that women in the past could only be successful by pretending around the men before cutting their throats. Victoria keeps her composure, even as Homelander reveals Stan Edgar is out of jail. Tech Knight takes Webweaver, aka Huey in his suit, on a house tour. He invites him to his secret tech cave, a BDSM dungeon, and a torture chamber. Tech is delighted to show Webweaver this room, inviting him to be his next sidekick. Huey notices Tech Knight's last sidekick chained to a wall in a gimp suit. Tech Knight misinterprets Huey's nervousness as excitement, promising more extreme activities. Huey manages to humor Tech Knight until Ashley interrupts. Tech Knight instructs Huey to clean up with sandpaper, but Huey is soon tied up and subjected to Ashley's sadistic whims. Tech Knight grows suspicious when Huey can't recall Webweaver's safe word, leading Tech to rip off his mask and find Huey inside. Soon, Annie, Kimiko, and sneak into the party after they lose contact with Huey. Starlight uses a syringe to subdue Firecracker, and holds Sage at gunpoint while Kimiko searches for Tech Knight's secret book to open the passageway into his dungeon. Sage is shot when she tries to trigger an alarm. Kimiko convinces A-Train to help who collapses by bringing him to a hospital. Meanwhile, Homelander prepares for his meeting, but struggles without Sage's support as she's incapacitated by the bullet. Victoria steps in, reassuring the attendees of her control and outlining her vision. Huey, Starlight, and Kimiko find Tech Knight, and they try to torture him for information, but this only excites him because he's into BDSM. Ladio, the former sidekick, helps them access Tech Knight's computer with access to his bank accounts. Realizing hurting him physically won't get anything out of him, they start to donate his money to various causes like the Innocence Project and Black Lives Matters. Tech Knight starts to lose it and reveals his deal with Homelander and Sage about turning prisons into internment camps. Elijah, Tech Knight's assistant, strangles him, telling Huey and the others to leave. As they depart, Elijah reveals Webweaver's safe word, Zendaya. Back at Vought, Firecracker tells Homelander she ran into Starlight at Tech Knight's house, but that she got away. She demonstrates her loyalty by producing breast milk after a regimen of drugs to make her body produce it. Homelander drinks the milk, finding a new maternal figure in Firecracker. Meanwhile, Butcher returns to Samir with more equipment, pressuring him to develop the virus despite the catastrophic risk. Kessler, now revealed as a figment of Butcher's imagination, insists on the necessity of the virus to finally eliminate all supes, and Butcher struggles with accepting this. Ryan is on the set of Vaught's The Avenue V Christmas special, which shows a puppet version of A-Train talking to Ryan about Antifa before singing a song encouraging children to report their parents or anyone suspicious in their life. Ryan questions the show's intentions, but the director insists the lyrics were personally approved by Homelander. Sister Sage arrives at a meeting at Vought Tower, where Homelander and Firecracker are already there, claiming they moved the meeting up without her. Homelander dismisses Ashley and reveals he found bugs planted by Butcher at Tech Knight's mansion. He assigns Firecracker to find the true mole, explaining to Sage that while she has brains, he has wisdom. Sage is upset about being upstaged by Firecracker, so she texts the Deep for a little fun time. Meanwhile, Annie tells her mother, Donna, that she needs to hide with their extended family in Sedona, Arizona. Donna is upset, revealing she was kicked out of her Bible group because of Annie's abortion. After hanging up, Annie says she couldn't imagine bringing a child into the world they live in now. A-Train takes pictures of Sister Sage handing a file to someone on the street and sends them to MM. Butcher returns to the office, revealing he was behind Samir's disappearance. He shares that a virus strong enough to kill Homelander would cause a global pandemic, killing all supes. Annie is horrified, claiming it's genocide, but Butcher denies wanting to go through with it. Butcher also announces that Grace Mallory has freed Frenchie from prison. Doubting his leadership after he collapsed at Tech Knight's house, puts Butcher back in charge. Ryan finds a gift from Butcher under Homelander's tree, a picture of Butcher and his mother Becca. Meanwhile, gives his ex-wife Monique $10,000 and tickets to Belize, urging her and Janine to leave the country that evening. Monique, who is concerned, asks to join them at the airport that night. A-Train finds Ashley watching a VNN report on Cameron Coleman's death. She tries to convince A-Train to run away to Florence with her, knowing Homelander will discover their involvement in the leak. Butcher, Annie, and Huey break into an apartment where Sage is seen giving files. They discover plans to assassinate Robert Singer on January 6th, but their search is interrupted by a woman who attacks Annie and Huey before running away. The fleeing woman steals clothes from an elderly woman and peels off her skin, morphing into a new form. A-Train visits questioning why he wasn't at the apartment with Butcher, Annie, and Huey. A-Train reminds that leaving the country won't stop the war against supes, claiming it will come to Belize eventually. Frenchie and Kimiko watch over Samir, who reveals Butcher's bizarre behavior, including talking to himself. Meanwhile, Homelander and Firecracker confront Webweaver, believing him to be the mole. Webweaver admits to lending his suit to Butcher, but denies leaking information. Homelander kills Webweaver, which ends up horrifying Firecracker as she got to see Homelander's true face for the first time. Frenchie tries to talk to Kimiko, who is angry about his refusal to accept help. Kimiko reveals she lost her voice after killing another girl in the Shining Light camp. They agree to free Samir after he completes the virus, despite Butcher's demands. Ambrosius confronts the Deep about his affair with Sage. In retaliation, the Deep kills Ambrosius by breaking her fish tank. He sobs while she gasps for air. Huey tries to reason with Newman to step away from Homelander's plot, but fails. Butcher and Annie return to the boys' office to find the Deep and Black Noir waiting. A fight ensues, and A-Train and help defeat them. A-Train rushes to Ashley's office, asking her to run away with him now that Deep and Black Noir know he's the leak, but she declines and reminds him to cut out his tracking chip. Firecracker tries to comfort Homelander after learning A-Train was the leak. Sage reveals she knew A-Train was the leak, but that it was part of her plan all along, to spread misinformation. Homelander fires Sage. Samir tries to escape by stabbing Kimiko with the virus. Frenchie amputates her leg to prevent the virus from spreading. They present the amputated leg to Butcher, but they're unsure if it's strong enough to kill a super like Homelander. During the live broadcast of the Avenue V Christmas special, Ryan calls out Vought and tells kids to love and trust their parents. Butcher watches proudly from a bar before collapsing. Annie, who is actually the shapeshifter, steals Huey's laptop after seducing him. The real Annie is chained up in a room somewhere, unable to escape. Later, Homelander finds a picture of Butcher, Becca, and their dog in Ryan's backpack, which sets him on a rampage. Homelander tries to boss Ryan around, but Ryan flees and goes to visit Butcher. As the election results are getting certified on January 6th, Homelander and Firecracker set a trap on Victoria Newman. Homelander and Victoria are doing an interview live on Firecracker's show. Homelander takes the opportunity to pressure Victoria into admitting that she's a supe, but she doesn't bite. Homelander tries to laser her head off, but it doesn't work, which reveals that she is a supe. Homelander threatens Victoria, and she tells him that he'll have to arrest half the company and country, which is a surprise to Homelander, but he goes along with it. In the aftermath, Homelander has Ashley and her assistant Ashley make a list of anyone at Vought who has any leverage over him, as they're gonna kill everyone at Vought. Speaker of the House Calhoun certifies the election results. Robert Singer is now on the way to becoming the President of the United States, with Victoria Newman as the Vice President. Homelander's cronies, led by Deep Black Noir and Firecracker, kill everyone at Vought who isn't completely loyal to Homelander and the Seven. Ashley flees, but she only makes it to Homelander's apartment where she shoots up Compound V and gets mutated into a supe. We don't get a look at what Ashley's transformation looks like, but it seems painful. That will be something to watch in the 5th season. Early in the episode, Annie and Huey get engaged, but it's all a sham. It's Shifter Annie who proposes to Huey, who then proposes to Shifter Annie. But immediately after, Huey starts to get suspicious about Shifter Annie's behavior. Shifter Annie visits Annie and recharges. She also has access to Annie's memories, which makes things easier in fooling Huey long enough to kill President Singer. Annie's powers aren't working because she's really struggling with who she is, which has been a big theme throughout the season. After the election results are certified and the virus isn't ready, Huey gets the laptop to share all the dirt on Victoria with the public with the hope that the outcry will cause her to resign. But Shifter Annie has deleted all of the files, and it's officially bad news for the boys. Singer asks the public for a free and fair election. He tells the public that Victoria will have him assassinated. It's not necessarily Victoria pulling the strings, but it's true. It all comes together in the bunker where they're protecting Robert Singer after Victoria is outed as a supe. Huey, Shifter Annie, and Kimiko are called to the bunker to try to protect Robert Singer. Frenchie stays behind to make the virus viable to take out Victoria. In the bunker, Huey realizes that Shifter Annie is the assassin after it slips up, but it's nearly too late. Shifter Annie makes quick work of the Secret Service agents and military personnel. The only one who slows it down is Kimiko, who is killed when Shifter Annie snaps her neck. She's not actually dead, but she's incapacitated for the moment. It gives real Annie enough time to break free of the cuffs holding her in the abandoned house. She shows up just in time to kill Shifter Annie and save Robert Singer's life. She's not totally cool with what Huey did with her impersonator, but she warms up to him later after Huey confesses his love for her, the real messy Annie. Butcher is dying as his heart is failing him. He calls Huey to apologize to him and the rest of the boys, but Butcher has a clear change of heart after Ryan kills Grace Mallory. Grace tells Ryan everything and tries to convince him to stick around and learn how to fight against Homelander. Ryan panics as he doesn't want to try to kill his dad, even though his dad is a bad guy. Grace reveals that she's going to basically kidnap Ryan if he doesn't agree. Ryan throws her against the wall, killing her. After Ryan flees, Kessler returns to Butcher and he knows what he has to do now. Victoria reaches out to Huey after the attempt to kill Singer. On a phone call, Homelander threatens her life and Zoe's life as well. She wants out, and she's willing to make a deal. In exchange for Zoe's safety, Victoria will become a member of the boys for a time to help stop Vought and Homelander. It seems like a good deal, but after everything that's happened, Butcher isn't messing around. He crashes the meetup, looking as fresh and healthy as ever. Huey tries to talk him into the deal with Victoria, but Butcher isn't having any of that. He shoots tentacles right out of his chest, picks up Victoria, and he rips her in half, and Huey ends up covered in blood. Kimiko starts toward Butcher, but Huey makes them stand down. Butcher also takes the virus from Frenchie, as he knows who he is going to use it on. At the end of the episode, it looks like Homelander is going to lose, but Sage returns. Her plan, although it didn't go perfectly, worked. Robert Singer is arrested for the murder of Victoria Newman. Sage has Calhoun on the phone ready to serve Homelander, and she reveals that she's planning Phase 2. Speaker of the House Calhoun later becomes the President of the United States of America and declares martial law. Then, Homelander takes over an army of supes brought in to round up the Starlighters. All the supes are coming for the boys and the rest of Homelander's enemies. As Kimiko, Frenchie, Huey, and Annie try to flee the country, they're stopped by Homelander's supes. Love Sausage knocks out in an airport bathroom. Cindy and other authorities arrest Huey while Annie uses her powers to fly away. Lastly, we see Sam and Kate, the guardians of Godolkin from Gen V, stop Kimiko and Frenchie. Kate uses her abilities to make Frenchie do whatever she wants while Sam overpowers Kimiko, who regains her ability to speak as she cries out to Frenchie. The final scene of the season reveals Soldier Boy, Homelander's father, is alive. Homelander and President Calhoun visit Soldier Boy, who is being kept in a chamber of sorts, keeping him alive. To be honest, I was a little worried that this season might not live up to the hype, but the final episode of season 4 was amazing in my opinion, and I can't wait for all this shit to go down in the final season. So yeah, that's all, and thanks for watching.